Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jarret Johnson, and first off, I just want to say it's been a interesting last couple of days, a week or so in Raiderland, and certainly across the college sports landscape with football season being in doubt at the time of recording this. It may have already been canceled or salvaged or somewhere between that by the time this actually posts and by the time you're watching this, but we have some really good questions from our subscribers at Inside the Red Raiders, so I'm going to dive right into them. The first one comes from Red Raider KA, who wants to know, he said, if Tech had, say, 20 million or 30 million in donations available, which athletic facility would I want to see them spend the money on for an upgrade? Well, to me, it's a no-brainer. The football training facility, it's very outdated compared to other Power 5 programs, most Power 5 programs. Don't get me wrong, the Red Raiders have done a great job of updating several facilities and adding facilities like the Sports Performance Center, which is the indoor track and indoor football field. They've fixed their practice fields, renovated their locker room in the FTF. But look, their game day locker room is ancient and in kind of bad repair. Really, honestly, it's not. Their game day locker room is not a good locker room. And actually, right now, because of the coronavirus, they are split, in an effort to kind of, distance the players so they're not right on top of each other. They've split the team into two locker rooms. Half, I imagine, is going to be the younger guys, and guys further down on the depth chart, I would think, are in the game day locker rooms at the Jones, across the walkway there. And then in the FTF, in the newer, more modern locker room, is the other half of the team. So in that FTF, there's, like I said, the locker room's nice, the weight room's okay, but it's just cramped. They need more space. They need more space for meeting rooms. They need more space for staff, personnel, and they need a bigger locker room, just point blank. I mean, they do. That money would go a long way. I think what they want to do is, there's a talk anyways of possibly building up. They'll build out some, but I think there's a talk of maybe even building up a second story or second and third floor to the facility. But to me, there's no doubt, like, it's kind of a sore eye when you bring the recruits on campus, and the campus is beautiful, and the school is just gorgeous and very modern. A lot of the facilities are modern. A lot of the other sports facilities are modern, including within the football program. Then you have the FTF, and it just really needs a major facelift. All right, next question. This is a really good question. I like this. This is the kind of talk I really enjoy. This one comes from Texan44. He says, regarding Tech's toss-up games, I want to say, first off, I don't necessarily agree that all these games are toss-up, especially, both ways, both in Tech's favor and the other way. But he says, regarding Tech's toss-up games, what type of play, scheme, or change will it take to get the win? He said West Virginia. West Virginia, I think you got to take care of the football. Now, you can say that for every game, every opponent, and that's true. But I think with West Virginia, and you got Jarret Doege, and I think he's going to take care of the ball. I think he's more of a manager-type quarterback. I just think you can't make those critical mistakes against West Virginia. I feel like if you win the turnover battle against them, you have a good chance of winning. If not, I think you'll lose. Baylor, Baylor is a different thing. I think you have to be aggressive. I think you have to attack Charlie Brewer. And we saw when Tech played Baylor last year, when they kind of blitzed their linebackers some, or blitzed off the edge some, it gave Brewer some fits. And when they laid back in more of a, not prevent, but laid back more in zone coverages, he picked them apart methodically because he's a smart quarterback. He's a veteran, experienced quarterback. So I think you got to get in his face. I think you got to force him to make throws that really his arm strength doesn't allow for. So that's what I would do against Baylor. That would be the key for me. Oklahoma State, you got to stop Chuba Hubbard. And each of the last two seasons, Texas Tech has done a pretty good job. I think he may have gotten some yards late last game, but Tech was already had a pretty big lead. Tech's won the last two games against Oklahoma State, and I think a big part of that is, it's weird. They dominated the line of scrimmage in that game each of the last 2 years, whether it would be stopping Oklahoma State's running game and then also having a running game of their own. I think the fact that they were so aggressive in stopping the run And then also they took their advantages over the top. Like Jed Duffy had perhaps his best game of his career against Oklahoma State last year. So I think the key, stopping the run game and then being aggressive play call on both sides of the ball against Oklahoma State. Kansas, I don't think this is a toss-up. With all due respect, I mean, Kansas won the game last year, and they won it. Now, everyone's going to point to that late fumble on the block kick, that pitch back to nobody, basically. But Kansas kept coming back, so they were resilient in that game, and they earned that victory. So I give them credit for that. Now, that being said, I mean, I feel like Tech should be overwhelming favorites at home against the Jayhawks. Now, if you don't want to take my word for it, you'll say, oh, he's being a homer. Okay, well, go to ESPN, their FPI, and I believe the Red Raiders are at 88%. Last time I checked, 87 or 88% chance of winning, favorite in terms of being expected to win that game. So, Tech doesn't have a lot of games like this, so I'm going to be adamant on this, on their schedule, that they're heavy favorites, and I expect them to beat the Jayhawks. So what they need to do is just handle their business this year. All right, Kansas State. On the other end of the spectrum, it's not that Kansas State is going to be such a great team next year, but Tech struggles in Manhattan in the Little Apple. It's a tough place to play. It's a really good environment for the Wildcats there. And just Kansas State style football, generally their smash mouth style football, is difficult for Texas Tech. So, you look at the Wildcats as well. Their quarterback, Skylar Thompson, has just shredded Tech. Whether it be big numbers or even when he hadn't had big numbers, when they've needed big plays, he always seems to step up and just really hurt the Red Raiders. So to me, controlling Skylar Thompson is the key to that game. And I think the best way to do that is to make him one-dimensional if you can, because he is a dual threat. He has run on Tech some. I think if you could keep him in the pocket, force him to make difficult throws, then you have a chance. I mean, I remember a couple years ago, at least, or maybe it was last year. I mean, they had receivers just running wild in the secondary. So, they need to do a better job of covering and somehow be able to keep Skylar Thompson in the pocket at the same time. Now, easier said than done. Like I said, it's very difficult for Texas Tech in Manhattan, so I don't have a lot of faith that they'll be able to go in there and win that game. Anyways, all right, I don't see that as a coin toss. All right, TCU, I do see this as a coin toss, and it seems like this is a lot of the older guys, even people my age, don't want to admit this, but TCU has become a huge rival for Texas Tech since they've been in the Big 12. I think a big part of it is that, obviously TCU being in the Metroplex and the Metroplex being the biggest alumni base for the Red Raiders plays a big part in it. But also they've had these just knockdown, drag-out, really close games over the years, other than the 82-27 game, fireworks game. And for Texas Tech and TCU both have gone into each other's house and beaten each other like, I think the last 4 seasons, maybe the last 5 seasons, and this one's in Fort Worth. So, to me, though, in terms of X's and O's, the key has got to be getting after Max Duggan. Duggan has showed some promise last year. And, what's funny is that Texas Tech was right in the game with TCU last year in Lubbock. And, a late fumble cost it for him. But, with Duggan, Jordan Brooks was banged up, and he missed some of that game. And so when he came out, Coach Patterson just went crazy blitzing him. He blitzed him all night. We're going to blitz him all game. And it worked. They got after Duggan. Now, he was young, so you expect him to adjust at some point. But, to me, you make Duggan prove that he can beat that, because it was highly effective against him. And I look for the Red Raiders to do that again, assuming that's who they'll face when they play TCU. So that's how I see those games. I think those are excellent questions. And, boy, it sure is nice to talk about actual football instead of whether it's going to be played or not. Next question comes from Blake65. He says, JJ, when you write a story on a recruit, he says, for example, Ty Buchanan, he's an offensive lineman out of Corpus Christi, Cal Allen, who the Red Raiders recently offered. He says, do you send them a copy of the article, or do you give them access to the site? How does that work? Yeah, I did interviewed Ty recently, a couple times in the last couple of weeks. And, look, this is my philosophy on this. Look, there's kind of a deal. They give us interviews. We give them, some hype headline, tweet it out, social media, all that. And it's all on the network. It's on the 24/7 Sports Network. So, I mean, there's a give and take there. But bottom line is, if I interview a recruit and I'm going to write about him, even if it's behind a paywall, I'm not going to deny access for that recruit to his story about him. I mean, that's how ridiculous would that be? Now, at the same time, I've had several young writers, especially, that just go out of their way to offer, hey, here's the story if you want it. And I don't have a problem with that, but my personal philosophy is, I'm also a businessman. We're also, I have bills to pay, mouths to feed, baby needs a new pair of shoes and all that. So, I'm not necessarily, I don't think, it's like a trick, but I don't think to offer, hey, do you want the story? So I don't just offer, hey, here's a screenshot of the story. But if somebody asks, I provide that to them as soon as possible, as soon as physically, humanly possible. I get them a copy of that. Now, I can't get them access to everything because, honestly, I'd probably lose my job if I did that, if the powers that be saw that. But we do have accounts for, like, say, coaches, all the coaches. And you'd be surprised how often we've had requests from coaches in both football and basketball, and over the years. And, of course, we always give that to them. And almost exclusively what they're interested in is what recruits have to say. So, yeah, of course, we're not trying to hide anything from these recruits or make them pay to see their own stories in terms of if we interview them. Hey, if you're going to take time out of your schedule and give me an interview and I'm going to write about you, of course, I'm going to give you a screenshot of that story and let you read that story in its entirety. All right, Josiah Tweezy wants to know my prediction for the 2021 class. I'm assuming he's meaning football. Yeah, they got off to such a great start before all this happened. I actually asked Coach Wells about, right before camp started, a recruiting question. Just, of course, we've been in a dead period since March, a forced recruiting dead period which basically means no face-to-face contact, right? They can't go out and evaluate the players. Players can't come see the campus, the facilities, all that. And so I asked Coach Wells, I said, of course it's affected everyone, but how has it affected you specifically, this forced dead period and Texas Tech specifically? And he was quick to say, hey, everyone's having to deal with this, no excuses. But one of Tech's, or he said actually Tech's best selling points are things you have to see in person. You have to come see the beautiful campus. You have to come see the people, which I know for me, I didn't have any family in terms of just being a student. I didn't have any family that went to Tech. I thought Tech was cool. I had a couple friends and I wanted to come see it. And I immediately got the West Texas vibe and liked it. And that's what was hook, line, and sinker for me. And I've interviewed so many recruits that it was the same thing for them. It's coming out here like you hear, Lubbock's terrible. And you come out here like, not really. First off, the scenery is amazing. The campus is beautiful. It's huge. It's one of the biggest campuses in the country. And like the people, the whole West Texas vibe is appealing to some, for many. So that's a selling point that you're just not going to get in a virtual visit, no matter how good your staff is in trying to portray that. You have to come out and feel it and see it for yourself. And so that's hurt Tech. I mean, perhaps more. Well, it has. It's hurt more. It's hurt Tech more than other programs there in the Big 12. So, to answer your question, Josiah Tweezy, I'm not as optimistic that this is going to be a great class as I was initially, because they started off really fast, had a really good spring based off some awesome huge visits both in January, I believe, and in March, right before all this happened. And they have some really good recruits. Their average star rating per recruit is way better than it's been in quite a while. But the numbers, I just don't see the numbers being there right now. They've lost some really key recruiting battles. And I don't think they're going to. This staff has made it very clear they're not going to just reach to get bodies as they go down their board. So I see it being somewhere in the range of 45 to 55. And with that, I want to thank you for great questions once again. Look for another mailbag later this week. Thank you for watching, and until next time.